whoops.
There we go.
So in today's episode, we're going to be going over the positioning from going from a landlord, maybe buying your first property or even owning a few properties, and changing the mindset of becoming an asset manager. So someone who owns a portfolio of properties, who has a strategy in place, a game plan, and then how to avoid burnout in all of that.
Oh yeah, burnout happens.
It's a lot. Yeah,
oh yeah,
for sure. So, quick personal, intro how it started for me. I brought up before I bought my first property in downtown Provo. It was a fourplex. Lived in one of the units with my wife, and then we just had our first child at that point, and then rented out the other 3 units. We bought it with an FHA loan, so we put 3.5% down. You can use 75% of the rental income from the other units to qualify for that, and it also helped cover essentially our whole mortgage. So it's a good strategy, not one you can really use in today's market. But the markets change, and there'll be some point again then that you'll be able to do something like that with a low down payment and kind of cover your costs.
That was going to be my question there. Do you feel like 3.5 will get you a turnaround in today's market, or?
No, so I mean the thing with FHA loans as part of their qualification process is that 75% of the income for the property. So you won't really even be able to do this with like a duplex. Or even a threeplex in a lot of cases, to have the 75% of the income cover the mortgage. So you'll have to come up with more than 3.5% to be able to make that work. So in our case, we were fortunate enough. The appraisal ended up coming in low. We had to negotiate that. A lot of things that I learned my very first time about 10 years ago now. But yeah, so as far as starting that journey, I had no idea. I didn't have a plan. Things came up where I wasn't ready and prepared for it. Like, didn't realize that the boiler in the basement of that property, that was heating all of the units, was going to cost $600 to $800 a month in gas. So that was a massive expense that I wasn't expecting, and ended up making a game plan. We'll talk more about that later. But this is ultimately just shifting the mindset from owning one property and how do I make this profitable, and then how do I repeat that, and then what's my strategy? Am I planning to keep this forever or refinance when the interest rates go down, or can I hold on to this property if it's not cash flowing, and what that looks like. So yeah, creating all those strategies to make it make sense. So,
right on.
As part of this, we're here to help anyone who's in a situation of either managing a property or getting ready to buy their first rental property. So if you're managing properties, or you have a portfolio you're managing that's yours, or have another property management company that you may have some qualms with, reach out. We're happy to chat. Even just talk strategy. Just what are you doing? What's working? What's not working? How can we help game plan and give you some pointers on things that we've experienced, that we've learned along the way, and so we can do to help.
Oh yeah. All right, let's dive into it. Today we're going to be unpacking why so many property managers are having burnout, and how we can manage your portfolio and not have your portfolio manage you.
Yeah. So there's 3 forces around burnout that we're going to cover today. So we're going to cover the emotional kind of load, things that happen with dealing with tenants on a regular basis, complaints, maintenance things can be taxing that way, and neighbor issues. We'll be going over decision fatigue. So being reactive to things that happen versus being proactive, and planning ahead for expenses that are going to be coming up. And then always having to be problem solving. And then the last one is no systems, kind of no way to track. You're having them pay you through Venmo or whatever, and then it's like you don't have any track logs. At the end of the year, you're having to go expense all of your things that you've done over the whole year. It's going to be a mess. It's mixed with your personal finances, and then how are you going to report that to your accountant? It's just way more work than just doing it in small increments and having a plan along the way. But we'll get into that.
Yeah. Now, having those systems in place are really good, especially here in Utah County. where your average home is about $520,000 now, and so one repair could basically just eat up your whole monthly income right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to do that twice because then it's like,
Yep.
well.
Then you're like, why did I buy this thing?
Yeah, exactly. And then that's when people reach out to us. Typically, is when there's pain points, things that are causing too much grief and stress and stuff. But we want to help you avoid all of that. If you want to keep building it and doing it yourself, great. We want to help be able to do that. So we'll kind of go over some of those things. But,
yeah. I guess I got a question for you, Nate. What's a recent conversation you've had with a burnout landlord?
A lot, all the time. Like it's usually around two main things. There's maintenance issues that the owner has tried to resolve but hasn't been able to resolve, either with the contractors that they're reaching out to and stuff. They can't get it done. And it's just taking too much of their time and stuff. And then the other one is around leasing, and this is in most cases where either the owner lives out of state now, or they just aren't able to find a tenant quickly, and it's maybe off season, like winter, like all of a sudden they didn't have, like, as part of their process, they didn't have like lease renewals, that they were signing lease renewals, and the tenants were like month to month or something like that, and then the tenant was like, hey, like, I'm gonna move, and it's like the middle of December and close to Christmas, and they don't want to it's hard for anyone to move during that time. And so having the systems in place, and then just not, I just lost my train of thought. It's gonna come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Let
gonna
it
go
burn a
back. No, but just around leasing. So like when owners are having a hard time finding tenants and stuff, or marketing, or having issues there, and it's been too long on the market, they're not able to meet their mortgage, they'll reach out to us.
Yeah. Have you found like what the tipping point would be for most landlords in that sense, or like when they realize their passive income doesn't really feel so passive?
I guess a recent owner that ended up signing up, their previous management company weren't really communicating well, and that's typically what happens when owners switch. They don't feel like their needs are being met. When they reach out, they just don't get called back or emailed back or texted back very quickly. And so this owner, didn't receive a rent check, and so they followed up with the management company, and I guess the tenant had got deported, but they didn't know that until like weeks later. And so they're just like, I don't know if, they just weren't doing their job, and so that's why they reached out, and we ended up sorting things out and we already have it leased. It's been 8 days.
About a week, yeah.
Yeah, 8 days since it hit the market, and we got a lease, and they're moving in a couple of days. So
beautiful. Yeah, with a home down the street sitting on
for
70 something days or something like that.
Yeah, which I think it was another management company, but it happens a lot with self-managing landlords too. That it's just a little tricky.
Oh, yeah.
There's a few tricks, especially in like sub-markets, like as far as how to lease the property. There's some groups, Facebook local marketplace groups that work really well, and then other places it's like only Zillow leads will come through for this group. So just understanding the market and how to market the property right to attract the most amount of prospective tenants.
Yeah, down in the Vegas market, I think people use Zillow the most, or apartments.com.
Yeah.
But out here, I've noticed Facebook's been huge.
Yeah.
One of our biggest ones that we get leads from.
Yeah, South Utah County especially, it's like 50% of our leads come through Facebook Marketplace and the local Facebook groups that we're a part of.
Yeah. So. It's interesting to see how many management groups use it, where like in Vegas, most people who are using Facebook, it's like a self-manager. The owner owns it and is renting it out, and that's who your point of contact is.
Yeah. Yeah, in a lot of cases with these local Facebook groups, there's property management companies generally, like at least the bigger ones, they try to avoid, or they can't really do the work that it takes to manage and do these local Facebook groups for a lot of reasons. Like Facebook blocks businesses from being able to post marketing stuff. So we have to use our personal accounts, but as property managers, it's pretty normal. People know that we we do real estate and stuff. So it's
Yeah.
having it come from us in a local group makes a lot of sense for them. So.
Oh yeah. Well, let's dive on in. 3 shifts to avoid burnout.
So yeah, as part of these items that you can put in place to avoid burnout, the biggest one is becoming proactive instead of reactive. So the first thing that comes to mind is doing preventive maintenance inspections. So instead of just waiting until something breaks, you should be walking through the property several times a year, inspecting it with the tenants. But as part of that, going through each component of the property. So, your water heater, all of your faucets and draining systems in your home, all of your smoke detectors, checking the furnace filters and everything like that, and just making sure that the things that can be managed, that there's not like active leaks going on, or that you have like a leaky faucet, cartridges has gone bad or seals have gone bad, just so that you can prevent, potential water damage and things like that ahead of time. So versus, tenant says like, hey, there's, water's leaking through the ceiling and it's getting, which still things do happen, but having a plan in place and being proactive that way. I'd say the next thing and the biggest thing in property management and having peace of mind for you to be able to, make sure that your needs are met as the owner is tenant placement, tenant screening, and all of that. If you have a great tenant, as if you own properties, life's easy. Like and they'll keep you posted. They'll take care of the property. They'll pay rent on time. All that stuff. But if you're not screening properly, it's kind of a gamble. You're like, this tenant could be great, or they could just not.
They could treat it like a rental. Yeah. Some people do treat it like their own, and some people do treat it like a rental.
Yeah. And a lot of that can be done through like a good screening process. So not only looking at financials, background checks, including bank statements and pay stubs, but having a way to contact employers or previous landlords and actually going through and taking the steps to see like how they've been as a tenant. Are they taking care of their property? Have they ever had a late payment on rent and things like that?
And for the most part, most property managers are pretty honest.
Yeah.
If they didn't like them, they'll tell you. They don't want to send their problems somewhere else, you know.
And maybe wouldn't ask, or the ones that are just managing them currently, if they're bad tenants, probably won't tell you be as truthful. But the one previous to that will be for sure, because they're out of their hair. So.
Oh yeah. And out here, Utah, winter's coming, and you got to make sure you're up to date on your HVAC and gutter cleanings and everything like that. Are you winterizing, which was a term that I didn't even know existed a year ago. Coming from the desert, we don't have to winterize. And when I moved out here, everybody's talking, just winterize the yawn, the
sprinkler system,
winterizing the lawn and winterizing the boat and the RV. And I'm like, what the heck is winterizing? So a lot of people move here from California and Nevada, and they don't deal with that type of stuff, and so it could break your pipes through the winter, and then spring comes around and leaks everywhere.
Thousands of dollars of repairs. So as far as next major point is not having systems. So if you're doing everything manually, meaning that you're sending a invoice to your tenants manually every month so they can pay rent, as far as inspections go, you're having to remember or calendar in, like, hey, we need to set up an inspection. Can I come walk through the property? Or you've forgotten that you need to do that. And then you're like, oh, wait, it's already been a year, maybe longer than that since I've walked through the property. There's a list of things that you should be doing, but maybe aren't doing. So creating a system for all of that. Finding a good property management software to help you with some of those things, to automate a lot of that, depending how many properties you own, implementing some other tools like Zapier to be able to help automate lease renewal processes so that tenants are notified. Our process starts at a mid-lease. So that's the first time we'll bring up, like, hey, are you planning to renew your lease? we want to know as soon as possible. If they're liking the property, they're liking the unit, they're taking good care of it, we obviously want to keep them as tenants. If there's something off, we want to be able to help resolve that, whether that's through a conversation or something's wrong with the property that we need to take care of.
Yeah, for sure.
And then like one last thing with that is just like with the timing of renewals in particular, because this is the greatest expense to any property owner is tenant turnover. So that the estimated average of tenant turnover is around $5,000 for every time you have to replace a tenant. And so having that really locked in as far as getting notifications for tenants are, so our next thing would be we notify tenants at 90 days.
Yeah, that's a big one. And I think 90 days is a good period because sometimes it does take about 45 days to get somebody in somewhere, and most managers, they think like, their 30-day notice is enough, but if it ends up being 45 days, you miss out on potentially a whole month and a half worth of your mortgage, and yeah, so it could eat up at you easily if you're not on top of that.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And but yeah, it's the kind of last thing with all this is doing everything all yourself versus delegating it. And so you may want to save money, right? You think you're saving money if you're doing all the maintenance, you're doing the management, you're doing all the leasing and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's if you calculate your time, it's like, what are you valuing your time at? And to do all this yourself, with not having systems and things like that, it will take more time and possibly more expenses. It's like, how do you value your personal time? Is it valued at, $5 an hour, which some years probably is what you'd be paying yourself if you were to do all this, if you were to instead just pay a property manager, whether it's like the average 10% fee, which is pretty standard around here, or a capped fee, like we have a capped fee at $199 per property. So
yeah, that kind of comes down back to like the passive income of it. Like, does this start feeling like a second job if you're putting 20 to 80 hours a week per unit or per year?
Yeah.
And that starts to get quite the hassle.
Yeah.
Something that you think might take an hour ends up taking all day, and that took away from something you're else supposed to do. So yeah, it could, if you don't have a system in place for that, it could eat up at you a lot,
Yes. So one thing with all of this is determining, what if you're considering yourself a DIYer, right? Like you are managing all your properties yourself. So a lot of people do a lot of the maintenance themselves and things like that to save money. Defining what the it part of it is yourself. Instead of doing everything yourself, DIYer, you're doing it yourself specifically. So if you have a strength in maintenance or whatever, you could save a bunch of money if you just went and did it. You live local. It's not hard for you to get over there. You don't mind tenants texting you at all hours of the day and night to resolve issues, and you can just work through that. Or if you like leasing or whatever, just finding what you like and then subbing out, paying somebody to do the other parts of it that you may not be as good at, don't have systems for, don't want to build systems for. But yeah.
Kind of comes back to the system building, right? Like if something happens twice, have a system for it. Like if you want something done right, do it right the first time so you don't have to come back and do it again second time.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. The last thing we wanted to talk through in this podcast was changing the way we think. So, thinking more like an asset manager versus just I own a couple rentals, and hopefully you're making money, right? Hopefully you're not exactly sure, you're not tracking it. So what do asset managers do differently than what property managers? So as far as taking a look at, our properties, things that we manage like an asset manager, the asset manager would always have an exit strategy. So whether they're planning to hold for 3 years, 5 years, sometimes 10 years, that's a longer term. Most asset managers would want to exit after solving some type of issue, adding some type of value to the property, and then exiting. So they're not going to be as concerned as maybe a property manager, like an individual owner doing themselves, about like replacing things that need to be replaced or repaired and updated. They're looking to improve the overall value of the property. And so for a property owner, they may want to do something to the property that they personally want, or think that might be beneficial but actually isn't.
Right.
So they may not be analyzing it correctly, or they just don't want to fix anything at all. So
yeah, like if their end goal is retirement, like if they're buying units to live for retirement, they might not mind replacing the furnace if it's going to eat up. It might be expensive at first, but they know 10 years down the road, at least it's done. And now that I can, be hands off and retired, I'm not as upset that I had to go and replace that thing or did it the right way, rather than having to then worry about it afterwards when you're supposed to be on the beach.
I think it's the right way to think about it. If your property owner was thinking long term like that, I think that's exactly what you'd want. It would be more like something that maybe could be done, like a window or something that has a crack in it, could get replaced. That they just kind of avoid that. But I think the idea shift is yes, I want to hold real estate for long term. It doesn't have to be this property in particular, though. So not attaching any emotion to the actual investment itself, but what is that investment doing for you?
Right.
So like as a long-term strategy for maybe a particular property owner, it's like, I will take care of everything I need to do in order to help this property become have the greatest value, so that 3-5 years, whatever my plan is, I'm going to sell that property for a profit, and not sell it for cash, but do a 1031 exchange and move that into a like property to be able to find something that's maybe potentially better. In this market with people having owned properties that have low interest rates, they're going to be holding these properties a lot longer than you potentially would if you're buying a property, in the 5.5% to 7.5% interest rate range, and then you're going to be exchanging those properties. But the principle is the same, is just thinking more long term and not being tied particularly to one asset, but more to real estate in general.
Oh yeah, have a good exit strategy.
Yeah. Exactly.
What are some local examples where planning ahead saved a manager less stress, or where not planning kind of cost them big?
I can tell an experience from my personal portfolio. This was an early on decision, and it fortunately worked out well for me. I didn't have like super long-term plans with it, but it goes back to this boiler that I ended up having to fight, right? So it's either I'm paying for 4 to 6 months of the year, paying between $500 and $800 a month in gas, or if I'm going to be investing that money that's not just going to go away into something that would be more efficient. So in this particular fourplex, tenants all had to cover their own electricity bill. There wasn't the right electricity, all the panels weren't set up to be able to have enough capacity to be able to add something like I'm about to tell you about. But as part of planning it, I ended up updating the panels, which was an expense. So adding enough breakers to be able to add a ductless mini split, which is an electric system that has a heat pump built in it for the winter, has multiple head units on the wall, and has a condenser outside. And then it does cooling as well in the summertime. So these units didn't have AC, they just had the window AC unit, so it was an upgrade that way. And then in the wintertime, these were the heat pumps, the main heaters that they used. So total cost for me was maybe $15,000 to $17,000 to do all this. I ended up doing a lot of the work myself, which probably saved me about 50%. So it probably would have been closer to $30,000 investment. But as far as the time horizon on earning that back, it was maybe a 2.5 to 3 year. I invest this money, and then I'll get that back within that time frame. And it's been a great system for me. I haven't had to come up with any gas for heating at all, right? And then on the electricity side, it helps the tenants in the summertime be able to keep their properties cool. But yeah, long term, it also increased the value of the property to be able to have that type of system in place. So overall, that $15,000 investment probably did a 5x multiple on the asset, on the value, and also I don't have to cover the expenses anymore. So.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I don't know. I think that's all of our touching points today. I guess Yeah, key takeaways from this would be burnout is real, right? But it's avoidable with the right systems that you can put in place and the right mindset. Mindset's actually a big one.
Huge
Yeah,
one. Yeah, for sure. And shifting from the property manager, just like I own a couple of rental properties as part of your, financial portfolio for retirement, to switching it to more long term of like how is owning these properties going to help me prepare for retirement, and am I doing what I'm supposed to now in order to have the type of retirement that I want and income that I want, and are these going to be a burden for me long term, or how can I change that up? And having a manager, good property manager can solve a lot of those issues for you as long as you are strategic about it.
So. Oh yeah, for sure. Utah's market is strong but changing, so managers got to be proactive, and if you're a self-manager, you got to be proactive yourself, so stay on top of everything.
Yeah, we'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Oh, all right. First one, episode 1 done.
Yes.